Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, welcome to Astronomy Sri Lanka Incorporation Astro Week for today's special discussion. First, allow me to introduce myself for those who are watching in Facebook and YouTube platforms. I am the Academic Director of Astronomy Incorporation, and today I will be your host. Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad to receive today on our special Astro Week one of our outstanding creative key speaker, Mr. Jonathan Nalder. He is Chief Futures Officer and Senior Teacher at STEM Punks. He is founder and facilitator at futurewe.org and firstonmars.net. He have excellent expertise as senior educator and consultant educator, storyteller, and Edunaut in Queensland, Australia. I would like to highlight that Mr. Nalder's vision of education is quite revolutionary. He empowers creativity as he encouraged to dream to learn mighty things. Mr. Jonathan connects big picture future thinking with practical human-focused results. He is globally awarded learning and innovation expert with more than 2 decades of high-quality expertise across schools, educational organizations, startups, creative projects, and online forums. He works globally as a speaker, ambassador, and training coordinator. He is known and very well known and very interested on artificial intelligence and VR, virtual reality. He is known for his excellent educational, unique methodology, including process drama, design thinking, human intelligences, and legal, all the while aspiring to be an Edunaut, inspired by how much humans have achieved in space exploration. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nalder will take us through an exquisite journey to discover valuable information during this lecture. Mr. Nalder, the floor is yours. You can get started.
So thank you very much for that wonderful welcome. It's great to meet you again, and I want to say thank you to Dr. Aravinda and Astronomy for the chance to chat with you, meet up again, but also to share with all of the students and all the people that get to be part of the day. So hi from Australia, everyone. I'm in Brisbane in Queensland. Thank you for all those waves from everyone. Australia and Sri Lanka, not too far away, but I think what's really exciting for me is, here I am, I'm kind of what you call middle-aged now. My two daughters tell me that I'm an old man, but it doesn't matter because we all have an interest in Mars and in astronomy. So no matter, where I am, I've always loved learning about space and Mars, and I think probably some of you out there listening today have that as well. I'm wearing MSA, and that stands for Mars Society Australia. So we'll talk a little bit more about something called the Mars Society today, and the Mars Society is in just about every country around the world. So I thought I would wear my Mars Society Australia shirt today, just to show that off for everyone. Now, I'm going to start off and do a bit of a presentation and explain some of the things that I've been doing and why I want to talk about them today. But later on in our talk, I'm going to ask everybody who's listening to load up some links on your computers and do a little bit of testing as well. So I'm going to have some challenges for you to try out. And you'll actually be able to help me out when you do that testing. And it's quite possible you might have some questions or some ideas and some feedback. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to do a Q&A, a question and answer, so that if you've got some feedback or some questions later on, you'll be able to pop them in, and then we can have a talk about all those when we get towards the end. Yeah, good. All right, so I'm going to switch over to sharing my slides now, everyone. So just give me a second to get that working. And you should be able to see those there. Can I get a thumbs up or something once the...
Positive. Positive, we can see it.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, so to start off, my topic that I want to talk about with everyone today is the idea of Mars-ifying education. Now, we know what Mars is. We know what education and school and learning is, but what I'm really passionate about, what I really want to do is how do we bring those things together? Really, how do we combine the Mars and the education, but also things just like being playful, using technology to bring all those things together. Now, there might be some adults in our audience, some other teachers, etc. And you might want to ask me questions later on about STEM punks. So STEM punks, you probably know what STEM is, everyone: science, technology, engineering, and maths. And STEM punks is the great organization I get to work for. It's based here in Australia, but we work in countries all around the world. And sometimes, yep, we get to do this Mars education side of things. So if you have some questions about doing STEM in classrooms and with schools, we'd love to chat about that. All right, so moving on to me, just a little bit more about my background. I started off actually when I left school. The first thing that I did was I did some training as a pilot. So that was pretty incredible. And it's an interesting story because when I was in year 12, a little bit of an echo, but maybe someone's turned their mic on by accident. There we go. So yeah, when I was finishing school and I was in year 12, I did physics and I used to get a C- for physics. And I did maths and I used to get a C for maths. And I really, I was having a bit of trouble, I guess. I passed, that was okay. But then when I left school and I went and became a pilot and I did pilot training, suddenly instead of only getting a C, I was getting a B+ and an A- for all of my physics and my maths. And that was because I loved the flying. In school, it was just learning it in the classroom. But I guess my message to you is it's good to, learn in school, but you've got to find what you're passionate about. When I found flying and learning to be a pilot, suddenly my grades improved massively. And that's because I found the area that I was really interested in, really, really passionate about, I guess. So that was a big part of my start. But I've also done other things, like when I trained to be a teacher, I did not do STEM or science. I did theatre and drama to start with. And some of the things I talked to you today about being playful actually come out of that training and that idea about having fun by doing some role play, basically. Then a long time later, I got the chance to start up my own education program, and I called it First Kids on Mars. And that's where it really just started, with the idea of, imagine for a second, if you actually on Mars, maybe it's the year 2035 or 2050, we don't know yet exactly when humans will get to Mars. But imagine you get to Mars. I wonder what was the thing that Mars will need for humans to be happy living there? Because Mars is maybe 8 months away from Earth, and you're probably going to have to go on at least a 2-year journey. That's a long time to be away from blue skies and green plants. Maybe you'll miss Earth. You might get a bit homesick. And some people will probably live on Mars a lot longer than 2 years. So I wonder, we started off with First Kids on Mars program asking, well, if kids went to Mars, what would be the thing they need so that they feel happy and healthy living away from Earth? So that was what First Kids on Mars was all about. And then since then, done a lot more work with STEM punks, as I said, and we've actually got to work with a whole lot of astronauts in our Space 2101 program around the world. That's been pretty exciting. And then 2022, I got to go somewhere called the Mars Desert Research Station, and that's in the USA. It's in the desert in Utah. I'll talk more about that soon. And the Mars Society, well, as I said, the Mars Society is a group of people in countries all around the world dedicated to helping humans get to Mars, basically. Advocating and educating and raising funds to try and move forward that vision. Yeah, so I got to become an ambassador, which is why I do talks like this, to share the ideas around Mars. And 2023 was the first time that I did a talk for, eco-astronomy. So now it's 2024 and we'll get to talk with everybody again. So that's a little bit of my background. Now, this might be a really good time if you are able to type in a question or something. I'd just love to know maybe what your favorite thing about Mars might be. What's the thing you think is most interesting about Mars? If you don't know anything about Mars yet, that's fine. But if you do have something, like what's that thing that really interests you or fascinates you? What's cool about Mars? What's interesting about Mars? You might want to type in a little question. I'll type in your idea. I'm not sure when I'll be able to see those, but now would be a good time. Just take even if it's just 30 seconds, have a think about what you already know about Mars. It might be a fact, something you already know. Maybe you know the color of Mars, or maybe you know the size of Mars. Maybe you know how much gravity Mars has in comparison to Earth, some of those things. Type those in maybe, or share what your favorite thing might be. And we might come back to that in the next little bit. All right, so while you're thinking about that, I'll go on to my next slide. And I want to explain a little bit more, what do I mean by MARS-IFYING? So we want to make education, we want to bring a lot more about Mars into education, about combining being playful, but also the technology and the learning, etc. So the first little bit I'm going to talk about, is this idea of play. How can we bring that idea in? And if you're somewhere where maybe you don't get to do that in your classroom, or you're learning too much, this might just give you a few little ideas, and then maybe there's some things that you can suggest to your teacher or to the school where you're at, or maybe it's just something that you want to try out for yourself sometime, if these are things that you don't normally get to try out. Then I want to talk about something, number 2 there. I want to talk about something called Regolith. And what that's all about, and how that can help with Mars education. And then there's a couple of online websites that I spoke about that I want you to help me test out. One is a virtual escape room, and another one is a chatbot game all about Mars. And that'll be the things that I'm going to get you to help me test all about. So did we have any questions or facts about Mars that had come through as yet that you can share with me? Did anyone get to type something in?
Still not. I'm gonna rephrase what you have actually said, so our dear students can answer your question. Actually, dear students, we have already a question for you. Are you ready? Can you see the Q&I in the upper side of team? You click on it and you write your answer for the question. I believe the question was how you imagine or what make Mars special, right, Mr. Nalder?
Yeah, what's a fact? What's something you already know about Mars, a fact? Or something that is your favorite thing that you know about Mars?
Okay, so dear students, kindly use the Q&I space to answer these 2 questions, or you can use WhatsApp group so we can have your feedback, right? Go ahead, and I will inform you, Mr. Nalder, when we will have any feedback.
Excellent. All right, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Right, so the first thing we want to talk about, if we're going to Marsify or make education more Mars and playful, I want to talk about some ways of doing that. And for me, one of the most important things is actually having things in your hand that you can touch and hold. And I find that whether it's for older learners like me or people still in school, if you can actually hold something in your hand and look at it and turn it around while you're learning about it, that can make a really, really big difference. And so for me, let's see if I can zoom in here a little bit down in the corner here. Let me just, the first thing I'll show you is, you can see this is a couple of students here in Australia. Some of the workshops that I do, and we just get everyone to put on a costume about Mars. And we've got, you can see there's an orange jumpsuit, and we also have a space astronaut jacket. And just by getting dressed up a little bit, suddenly everyone starts being having a bit more fun, being a bit more playful. And so maybe you have some kind of, maybe some kind of, might be just a little badge, something about Mars. Maybe you have a little model of a rocket, maybe something like Lego or some little construction that's space. Any of those little things that you can take along can just help everyone start having a bit more fun and being a bit more playful. Some of the other things that we like to bring along so that you can actually hold them in your hand, we actually get to bring along one of these. Now this is actually, so I've zoomed in there a bit more. You can see there's a little tiny rock in the container there, and it's actually a tiny little piece of Mars. Now, normally at the start of a workshop, we'll bring this in and we'll show everyone this tiny little rock, and we'll say, oh, did you know there's a tiny piece of Mars in our classroom today? And everyone sort of goes, what? That can't be real. Like how could that even happen? If we're on Earth learning about Mars, how can we have a tiny little rock that's actually a piece of Mars? And you know what? I don't actually tell anyone how that is possible to start with. I'm just going to let you think about it as well. There is a certain way that could happen. And then me, Jonathan, Mr. Nalder, I was actually able to go and get that little piece of rock here so I could take it and show it to students. But how it got here in the first place, I'm just going to let you have a think about how is it possible for a little piece of Mars to get all the way here. But I will say that even though it's pretty amazing, it actually didn't cost that much money. It really did not cost that much. And even if you don't get a piece of Mars, there are a lot of meteorites and pieces of asteroids that fall to Earth all the time. Most of them are made of iron, and it's actually pretty easy to get little pieces of iron meteorites that have been in space. So that's another thing that maybe you want to get, or ask someone you know who's older to get for you, or your teacher or your school. You can get little iron meteorites, and then what that means is you can actually hold something that's been in space. You can hold that in your hand. But as I said, in our workshops, we actually have a little piece of Mars rock. We also have some seeds. Now these seeds have been in space to the International Space Station, and we've done an experiment where they got sent up in a rocket. They spent about 6 months up in zero gravity, and also in space in the International Space Station there's increased radiation. Then they got back down to Earth, and we try and grow them. We put them in a garden and try and grow them and see, do they still grow? Can we eat the radishes, the little vegetables that grow? And most of the time they still grow really, really well. So that's fascinating. But it's just good for students to be able to hold those seeds and then go and plant them and test that out. That's something else very cool that we've done. And there are places that have these seeds and actually can share some with your school. And so Dr. Aravinda, you know, if you have any of the students who are interested in that, you might want to get in touch with me. I might be able to help out with some of those seeds. And then the other thing that we like to do is this kind of thing. This is a drama game. And I'm going to explain it really quickly to you in case you want to try it out sometime. You can see we've got 4 students all sort of standing there making a funny pose. But what we did was we asked them, if you're on Mars, what's the job you're going to do to help the Mars colony succeed? What's that job that you want to do? And then everyone has to practice. It's not a moving game. They have to freeze frame. So if they wanted to show us that they're driving a rover on Mars, they have to we count them in 3, 2, 1, and then they freeze. And only just from their body, how they're sitting or how they're standing. That's the only clue we get as to what their job is. So you can see in this photo, this group, they all froze in place. They were smiling because they were laughing a bit, but they still tried to freeze in place. And then we had to guess what jobs they were doing just from how they were frozen. So you might have a look at these 4 students and be thinking, well, some of them have got their hands up near their face. See if you can guess what that means, what job they were doing. Some of them sort of got their hands up in the air like this. And just from that, we had to try and guess. And then after we had a guess, they can unfreeze. And then they would tell us if we were correct or not. That's something that you can do, as I said, to practice about showing people what you know about Mars. Do a freeze frame showing what job you think would be most important for people to be doing on Mars to help out that colony grow. So that's just a few little ways to be a bit more playful and hands-on, yeah, with Mars kind of stuff. Right, now we want to talk about Regolith, but let me just check in to see with the Q&A. Oh, here we go. All right, so I can see, I just clicked on the Q&A button on mine. I can see quite a few here. So let me scroll down a little bit. We've got, oh, here's this is almost just about my favorite fact about Mars, is about a volcano. So a lot of people don't know this, that the largest volcano in the whole solar system is on Mars. And yeah, it's called the Olympus Mons. So that's a really good one. Yep. Most people are pretty amazed when they find out, and that it's not just big, it's 3 times bigger than Mount Everest here on Earth. So Mount Everest is the biggest mountain on Earth, or the biggest mountain above the sea. You imagine something 3 times as big as that. So yeah, that's a really good one. Oh, someone's asking about the Mars meteorite. How could we find it? Yeah, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how we find it. How does a piece of Mars get to Earth? That might be something you want to look it up and see what you can find out about how that might actually happen. Cool. All right, we have another person who is saying that with modern technology, it is possible to make Mars habitable. Yeah, and I would agree with that. As well, you're saying we need to be more dedicated and motivated to actually get there. And yep, hopefully. Now there's something called the Mars generation. So if you are in school right now, then you are the Mars generation. And that's because you're the right age that when you grow up a bit more, you'll get to see humans actually get to Mars. So you guys are fortunate. I'm getting past the stage. I don't think I would ever be able to go to Mars now. It'll happen a bit too late, but you guys are sort of in that perfect little zone. So yeah, hopefully you'll be able to bring your dedication and your motivation to that. Someone else is asking about dust storms. That's a really good question. I might just answer this one and then I'll keep going and come back with some of the other ones. But dust storms on Mars, yeah, they can exist for weeks. Sometimes almost the whole planet can be covered in a dust storm for weeks or even longer sometimes. And that's definitely going to make it tricky. Now, people aren't going to go outside on Mars anyway because they can't breathe. They're going to be inside, or they're going to be in spacesuits. So the dust is a problem outside. But the biggest thing is that, of course, when there's dust, that stops the sunlight. And if you're using solar panels to get free energy on Mars, that's when the dust storms. So it really is something you have to plan for. You might need some batteries. You might need to make sure you've got enough power so you can last through those dust storms. So that shows very good knowledge, everyone, of Mars so far. All right, so let's talk about regolith. Now, regolith is just another name for dirt or soil. On Earth, we'd probably go outside, and if we could pick up some dirt or soil, yep, that's what we call it here on Earth. But on other planets, we often call it regolith. And no one's ever been to Mars and then come back and brought us some dirt. As I said, there is a weird way that we can get tiny pieces of rock, but getting dirt back here, yeah, that obviously hasn't happened yet. However, there are some ways to get what we call simulated regolith or simulated soil. And by simulated, I mean it's as close to being exactly like Mars soil as we can make it. So everybody knows that Mars is the only planet populated only by robots. There are a lot of robots on Mars right now. They're called rovers, like Perseverance rover. And as these robots have been exploring, they can test the soil, they can send that information back to Earth, and then there are people here on Earth who go and collect dirt and make it as close to being a simulation of that Mars soil as possible. And if we can make some soil that's really close to Mars, then we can test out growing things. And we can test out things like how easy is that to turn into dust and make dust storms, those sorts of things. So I had a chance to try out some of this regolith. There's a place called Exolith Lab. Now it's from Florida in the USA. And we have little microscopes. We attach them onto a phone and then we use the camera. And that's what's happening here. If I zoom in down on this picture, you put the little microscope right up against a tube that's got that soil in it, and then you can see it up close. So you can see up in here on the screen of that phone what that simulated Mars soil looks like up really, really close. And when you can see it up really, really close, you can start thinking about, well, if I lived there and that was what the soil was like, what would that mean? Does it look like the kind of soil that you could grow things in? And one of the things that students notice when we show them this is that it's very, very fine dust. Like it's very, very tiny pieces of dirt that make up that regolith. And so if you can imagine living somewhere where they don't have sort of the dirt and the dust, it's not clumps of soil. A lot of the time it's very tiny bits. And the reason why we have the dust storms is because it's so tiny and it can get blown up into the atmosphere so easily. But it also means if you go outside, you'll get a coating. All of your suit will get coated, stuck with all this tiny, tiny bits of dust. And it's probably going to be really hard when you try and go back inside again. And you have this dust stuck all over your suit. Someone's going to have to work out, how do we get that dust off so you can actually come inside without bringing in all that dust and making a mess, but also polluting things. So the dust and the regolith is actually a big challenge, and it's great that you can actually test it out. Now, also, you might know that EcoAstronomy now has simulated soil as well. This is something that Dr. Aravinda has been working on. Maybe he's already talked about this with you guys. Give me a thumbs up if you've already heard about the EcoAstronomy, the simulated soil. Anyone? Or a little wave? I can see some of your cameras. Yeah, there we go. Or put a, very good. Thank you, Anushka. A little hand up. So you already know about this, and maybe this is something you'll get to test out or try out. Now, when I was showing you these little microscopes that we just clip on, they only about 10 Australian dollars. Not very much at all, but they're great for being able to look up really, really closely. So I'm not sure if that's something that you've done with the EcoAstronomy simulated soil as yet. And it looks like there's a couple of different types that are being produced. It'd be interesting to look at both of them up close and then test them out. But the best thing about that really is that you're getting to actually hold something that's got to do with Mars. So you're not just learning about it. You're not just having someone like me tell you about Mars, but you're getting to actually look at it up close and hold something that is a simulated version of Mars. Very good. So yeah, that's why I love that soil and that regolith. I'm just looking, we did have another comment or question come in. We might just pause for a second and answer that one. I'm not sure who 2097 is. One of you guys.
His name is Tinoga.
Oh, very good. That one is asking, how long does it take to travel to Mars? And that's a bit of a trick question because it changes. Both Earth and Mars are moving around the sun all the time. But pretty much every time that we send a new rover or a new rocket to Mars, we do it when the journey is as short as possible. So we might see, yeah, how long does it take to travel? And we might let some of you put in an answer, how long you think it might take to get to Mars. Yeah, because there's a couple of different answers, basically, and then we can have a look at that later on. Now, someone else, Anushka has been typing quite a bit. Now, you were asking about dust storms, and now you're asking about nuclear power, because if you've got power that doesn't need the solar panels, then that's going to get you through the dust storms. So that's really good thinking, Anushka, the nuclear power. And the Perseverance rover that we mentioned, you probably already know about Perseverance rover. It actually does have a tiny nuclear reactor inside of it right now. And it's amazing because all the other rovers, they used to die when they got too much dust on their panels. And it's very sad stories. There are some really amazing videos you can watch about the old rovers, and you get quite sad at the end when you watch them, because when the dust builds up too much, they stop. And they're still there on Mars. They're waiting for humans to get there and clean off the dust one day, maybe. But Perseverance rover, yeah, it actually has that tiny nuclear reactor already, so it can just keep going. And probably in another 20 years, it might still be over there rolling along because it's got that power. All right, thanks for those questions and comments, everyone. So now I wanted to talk about the Mars Desert Research Station, the MDRS. And it's a place that the Mars Society set up over 20 years ago out in the desert in Utah. And since then, they've had, I think it's now up to about 285 or 290 missions where a team of people will go to the base and they will actually live there, sometimes for a week, like I got to. You can see my picture there. But sometimes people live there for 2 weeks or even up to 6 months at a time. They'll go inside the simulated Mars base. Now, the first time I got to go there was because people were testing out rovers. They do a special program there where people from all over the world will build a rover, and then they'll take it and they'll test it in the desert. It's very much like Mars, so it's a good place to test ideas for rovers. And I'm pretty sure that there has been teams from Sri Lanka who've been and competed in this competition. I know we've had Australian teams go, but people from all over the world who go and test that out. And this is what my team looked like when I went to stay at the Mars base at the MDRS. And we get to make up our own mission patch. And I actually took along a little thing called a Mars bar. So in Australia, we have a little chocolate bar called a Mars bar. Give me a wave if you have that as well. Or have you ever seen a Mars bar where you are? Excellent. Yeah, but do you know what? In the USA, they don't have Mars bars. So I had to take along a little Mars bar when I was staying at. Now I'll show you a quick little video of what my time there. I'll just see if this is going to play. I might need to do this. There we go. So this will give you a quick little look at what does the Mars Desert Research Station actually look like. It's got a greenhouse area for growing plants, and it has a work area, a research lab. We have to get to put on our space suits when we go outside because we're pretending that we are on Mars. We're living exactly as if we were on Mars. We have little rovers we get to drive when we go out on missions and taking samples and exploring. Those are quite fun to drive. And then the night sky is beautiful because we're out in the desert.
If you allow me, we can't see the video.
Stars really, really clearly.
It's not like visible for us.
It's not showing up for you
black.
guys.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so that was a quick little look at what the base will look like. And then from above, it kind of looks like this. So if you were able to sort of fly up above the Mars Desert Research Station, as I said, it's in the desert in Utah in the USA. And these are the key parts of the station. So you've got a habitat, that's the big white main section. And in the habitat, there's two levels. One is where you store all of your gear, and you also have the shower and the toilet. But you only have a shower maybe once a week when you're there, because there's not a lot of water. We have to preserve the amount of water that we have, and even then you only have a shower for about 1 minute. And then you have a second level in the habitat, and that's where the bedrooms and the kitchen and those kinds of things are. And when you go there, you have to pretend that you're on Mars. So the only food you have is freeze-dried. There's not really any fresh food unless you grow it yourself in the greenhouse. We have to use only solar power while we're there. We can't just open the door and walk outside because we would be dead. We have to put on a spacesuit, and then we have to stand in the airlock for 3 minutes and wait, because that's how long it takes to pressurize the air, and then we get to go outside. So you have to do all those things, but it really teaches you about, if I was there for real, what would it actually be like? Now, this is something that I was able to record and put together when I was, after I got back, I got to take a lot of 360-degree photos. Now, 360 degrees means that you can turn and look and see as if you were, almost as if you were standing there. So this is actually the first thing that would be great if you do have a computer that you can load up a link to help me test. This is this blue address, hopefully you can read that on your screens, edu.cospaces.io, and then it's a slash, and then capital letters WKMWZF. Can we put that in the chat or something like that, if that's possible?
I'm gonna share it
test
in
this
WhatsApp
out.
group.
Now, if it does load for you, that would be great. I don't know if it will load for everyone. You're going to help me test this out. You can try and load it to start with. If it does load, then you can click the play button. And when you click the play button, if it starts working, you'll be able to, I think I've only just started on the greenhouse one so far, or you might want to test out some of the other ones as well. So we might give you about 5 minutes. If you have got an internet there that's working enough for you to try out this link, and see if you can get it loaded for me. I'm going to give you, just a few minutes to try that out, and then you might have some ideas on what you see. You might like it, or you might have some ideas for how it could even be better. There might be some things that are not working yet that you want to tell us about, so that I can go and fix them sometime. So I might load it up as well, just in case it's not working for anyone. So give me a second to go and do that. And then I might be able to at least show you on my screen what it looks like. All right, mine is loading at the moment. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to change my screen sharing. So just give me a second while I change my screen sharing. Okay, so yep, mine has loaded. I can see, yep, I'm on the right page because I've got that same picture in the background. And when I've loaded it in, I can click and drag and look all the way around. You can see there's a lot here, but the main part I've made is in the middle here. And I'm going to use the arrows on my keyboard. I can push on the arrows to move forwards and backwards. And so I'm going to zoom over. And the first thing here it's telling me is to tap or click the greenhouse. So I'm going to fly down here to the greenhouse. Here we are. And maybe from here, I just want to have a bit of a look around. And we've got a science lab. There's the solar panels. There are some observatories with telescopes. And there's also, oh, there's the habitat there where it would be. So now I'm going to click on the greenhouse. And oh, here I am. So now it's actually loaded me inside the greenhouse. So if I was actually in there on a nice sunny day, I'd be able to look and see what kind of plants. There are some snow peas being grown in this part. There's a big water container over here. If I turn around this way, I can see, oh, there's some more snow peas. Those are a little bit green, but some of them are a bit dried out. So they might be having trouble to grow those on Mars. And then, oh, there's some more snow peas. And then there's a whole extra bed growing up there. And if I want to, I can actually look straight up. And on the ceiling, there are some big lights, some quite strong lights up on the ceiling. And those are special growing lights. So in the nighttime, we can turn on those growing lights. They're actually pink, like a pink purple color. And at nighttime, the whole greenhouse is colored pink. But those are special growing lights. Because Mars is a lot further away from the sun, the sun is only about half the size it is on Earth. So on Mars, you're only getting half as much sunlight. You might need some growing lights like this to help those plants to grow properly. Alrighty, so that's probably enough time for everyone to load that and maybe try it out a little bit. You might want to keep that link if you want to try it a bit more. But as I said, I'd be very interested to know about your ideas and which parts are working. And then if once I get some ideas, I will find some time to add in so you can go inside the habitat and you can go inside the other areas as well. All right, I'm going to go back to where we were up to. Yep, so that's that link there. And I can send that to EcoAstronomy as well, so they can send that link around and share it with you. Very good. Now, just going to double check our Q&A. If you've got any of those feedback or ideas or questions, you can pop those into the Q&A as well, and then we'll come back to those a little bit later on. All right, thanks for testing that out. There's probably two more things now that I'm going to show you and then get you to test out before we do some questions again afterwards. And the next one is what we call a virtual escape room. Now, you might have heard of escape room games. There are places where you can go and actually be inside a room for real. And there might be some locks and some clues, and you have to try and work out what the clues are, unlock some boxes, and find your way to escape from a room. Not sure if you've ever had a chance to do one of those. I went and did one which was a Harry Potter escape room a while ago, and we had to get a wand, and when we tapped a certain part of the room, a little door would open. And then we had to know enough about Harry Potter to read the clue and be able to tell us 4-digit number. And if we figured out what the 4 numbers were, then we could undo a padlock, and then that opened another door. And it took us about nearly an hour to find all these clues that were hidden in the room. And then eventually we got to escape from the room. So that's something you can do in a real room, but you can also do them as a virtual or an online escape room, like a website. And so I've started building one of these as well. And while you're playing the escape game, you're also learning all about the Mars Desert Research Station. So that's what this one is about. And I'll give it a bit of a problem. There's a bit of a problem that you have to try and solve while you're doing this escape room game. And what we say in this one is that you've been on Mars for 3 months. After being there for 3 months, you're already starting to crave some kind of fresh green food to help remind you of home and to improve your health and your mood. You never thought you would crave vegetables and lettuce so much. Now, I think if you think about being on Mars for a little bit, every time you look out your window on Mars, you will see orange and red colors. pretty, and Mars is very beautiful for a lot of people when you see photos of Mars, but it is all pretty much red and orange is what you see. And humans, we're used to seeing a bit of blue, maybe some blue sky, some green, some other colors. So in this escape room challenge, you have to imagine, yeah, maybe the people on Mars, they're actually starting to miss Earth. They're feeling like, oh, I really want to see something green, or even just have some fresh food. So that's part of the problem that we're talking about. So the idea is it will take you on a journey through the 5 key areas of the Mars Desert Research Station to try and help you solve this problem around, yeah, this are the things that I need. And there'll be clues, is the idea, in each of the different spaces. So when we test out the room, you'll see one of the screens you'll get to see is a little bit like this, which will be the base. And there are locks. You can see that some of these areas in the virtual escape room are locked to begin with. And that's because we haven't visited those yet to answer the clues and unlock them yet. But if you get a chance to test this out today, there is one area that's unlocked when you start. If you look down in the bottom corner, there's a lock that's actually opened already, and that's the area that you're going to get to start with. You'll have to do things like, you know, if it shows you some information, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more, hang on. If I show you some information like what are each of the buildings, you might need to pay attention to that. There might be some useful information that will help you in the game later on. And then, as I said, there's one little area down here where it's unlocked. And that's showing you, yep, that's the unlocked area. That's where you're actually going to start from. And it's not even in the base, is it? Interesting. Why is the starting area all the way down there? Now, when I went to the Mars Desert Research Station, we did get to put on our suits and we did get to go on a hike. We had to climb up the hill, even though we were wearing the heavy suit, and we got to see that view looking down. So in the game, that's where you get to start from. So what we might do, I can go to my next one. Oh, yep, then there's quite a long link here, unfortunately. I wasn't able to get it to give me a shorter link. So I might leave it on the screen, or maybe we can even copy it and send it in a message as well. But we might spend another few minutes now if you're able to load this up, and I'll make it so it's just the right size, hopefully. There we go. And see if you can load that up. So the first bit is easy, view, VIEW.GENIAL.LY. That bit's fairly easy. Then a slash, but then you're going to have to pay attention to try and get all the rest of that. 65FF7D, 7870, BF9800133, FA342. See how you go with getting that, and then it should load up for you. And I'm going to leave that there for a couple of minutes so you can try that. And then I'll switch over and I'll show you what it looks like as well. But just in case it's not loading for you, then in a couple of minutes, I'll load it on my screen so you get a chance to check that out. And that's the one we want to begin with. And I should also tell you, I've only just started working on this one as well. So you'll be able to play through the first part of it, but then I'm after ideas and some feedback before I start building the rest of it. So you'll be able to unlock and go to the first area. After that, you'll get stuck. But once I get some more ideas from students like you, then I'm going to keep working on and building the other parts as well. Right, so yep, maybe about another 30 seconds. I'll leave that nice long link there. Sorry it's so long, everyone.
Check it, I have wrote it in the Q&A box. Check the link.
Thank you so much. That'll make it
You're very
much
welcome.
easier. Yeah, that's great. All right, so now that it's in there, I'm going to change the sharing so I can go and show what that looks like when I load it up at my end. Here we are. So we have our Mars MDRS, Mars Desert Research Station Escape game. And we're going to explore and learn all about the Mars Society's Mars Desert Research Station. And we're going to go on a pretend we're on a simulated mission to Mars, and it actually starts 3 months after you've arrived and set up your base. So yeah, obviously the first thing I'm going to do is click the start button. There is some music, I think. Not sure if that'll come through to you guys or not, but I'm going to click start. And here it is. It's telling us the problem that we looked at before, the idea that maybe we're starting to go a bit crazy because we're missing some colors and some greenery and some fresh food, those kind of things. So on our mission, yep, that's what you'd be looking for, is how to help with that particular problem. All right, here's our starting screen for the base. And you can see our locked areas here, but there is a bit of information up on the side here about, you might want to check that out, giving us some hints and some clues about what's going on. There's information at the bottom about the different areas of the station. Once you've had a look at that, of course, you notice the little unlocked area down in the corner. And yeah, it's kind of flashing at you a little bit to give you a hint that we should click on that. And when we click it, we can actually see if we were standing up on that hill, looking down at the base, this is the view that we would see. So we're up a little ways, and you can see off in the distance the white buildings that make up the base. And after 3 months on Mars, you're so used to seeing red and orange, you decided you want to do an EVA. Now that's an extra vehicle activity. That means when you go outside and explore, you decided to go out to the nearby hills, see, can you find a different color somewhere on this area on Mars? And while you're up here, your challenge, as it says, is to click a spot in the photo that shows the most, what's another natural color that you can see that's not just that sort of red or orange. Now, whether you're doing this on your computer or whether you're looking at it on my screen, we'll look and see what color that's not just red or orange. And after a while, your eye would notice, oh, there's actually some fairly bright yellow down here. That's something at least that's a bit different. And the challenge has to click on that spot. When I click on that, now it's taking me on to the next part of the challenge. I've got a few more questions to think about and to answer. And I mean, it's asking us here, if we did see some yellow, would that help? Would that help us feel a little bit better? Maybe a little bit brighter and happier? If you think, yeah, seeing that yellow actually helped me feel a bit brighter, we would click the top one. Or if you thought, no, yellow's still a bit too close to red and orange, it's not really helping too much. So you could make your choice and your selection there. And when you do, then it'll take you to the next part of the challenge. And after you've answered the questions that you need to in this little section, then you'll get to continue your journey back to the base. So that's probably enough about me explaining what's in there so far. As I said, we'll leave that for you to play around with and do a little bit more testing. Now, while you're playing that escape game, I can see there are 2 more questions that have been typed in. So why don't you keep trying out the game, and while you're doing that, I'll have a look at these 2 questions. Where are we? So someone was asking about, I think it's Yeshen, was asking about the possibility of microscopic life on Mars and maybe near the polar ice caps. So firstly, very clever. Not everybody knows that Mars does have ice caps on the top and the bottom, especially the top is the main one. Most of the ice there some of it is water ice, some of it is frozen carbon dioxide as well, believe it or not. But yes, there is ice caps there, and maybe, sounds like you're thinking maybe that's a good place to find signs of microscopic life. Now, there's no robots have been to those places yet to explore it, so we don't know yet. maybe, yeah, there are some places on Earth where there's ice and you find microscopic life. So that's a very good question to think that if we find that here, maybe we might also find that when we get to travel to those parts. You're talking about the summer season, the ice melts a bit. Ah, yes. So maybe having that water is pretty handy for supporting life. So the ice melts a bit, we've got some water. And combine that with the dust particles and the metals that are there, that could definitely be a thing. So as I said, you guys are the Mars generation. You might have to go and find that one out for sure. And then someone else is saying, what do we need to do to reduce stress on Mars? Yeah, and that's what this escape room game is about, is thinking about those sorts of things. Maybe if you found some nice yellow, maybe that would help, or maybe you need to grow some fresh food. Now, I know some of the people who stay at the Mars Desert Research Station, they love to go into the greenhouse and grow the plants. That really helps them reduce their stress. And they can't have a pet. You can't really take a dog or a cat or anything to Mars, but you can have a plant as a pet. So a lot of people will take a plant, maybe one of those snow peas we looked at, and they'll give it a name. They'll name their plant, then they'll go and water it each day, and sometimes they'll talk to their plant. And that is something that helps reduce their stress. Other people like to play music. So maybe if you're only allowed to take one album to Mars, like 10 songs or 12 songs, what would be the songs you would take that would help to bring your stress down a little bit? Maybe you have seen a movie called The Martian. There's a movie about someone getting stuck on Mars, and each of the different people before they left Mark Watney behind, they had music, and one of them is disco music. There's a lot of disco music that's very funny in that movie. So you might decide what type of music it is that you want to take. That might be something. And you might have some other ideas as well. Why don't you put those into the Q&A as well? What type of things would help you reduce that stress? Yeah, so that is our little virtual escape room. So thank you everyone for helping me to test that out a bit. That was great. And there is one more thing that I'd love us to test out. I think we've still got about 6 or 7 minutes. Now this next one, I just have to explain that this one is what we call an AI chat. So instead of doing an escape room to learn about the Mars Desert Research Station and Mars and the Mars Society, in this one, you actually type in answers and questions to a chat bot, and it'll talk back to you and tell you things, and it'll react to what you have to say. This one, you do need to be 13 or older to use it by yourself. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that one. If you're 13 or older, you can load up the link and try it out. If you're not, then you would need to find someone who's older who can supervise you while you play it. Now, it's already been set up so that it's safe for education, but those are the rules for using it. And you probably want to do this if you're using any kind of AI, artificial intelligence tools. Pretty much all of them. If you're 13 or older, you should be able to try them. But if you're younger, you need to get someone to help you supervise. So I'll show this one to you really quickly. I'm not sure if we have 13 and older, but I'll show you really quickly. Now, probably the best way to find it if you are 13 and older is to go to a website called play.rosebud.ai. And when you get there, you'll see that the MDRS chat, it's one of the main games that they're featuring. And Rosebud is not for students yet, but hopefully soon you'll be able to also, as a student, go to Rosebud and you'll be able to make games there. And that's what I did. I wanted to make a game, so I made a picture of myself. Here I am in my Australian spacesuit, and I put myself into the game to help explain all about how that works. So I'll now switch over and I'll stop sharing that screen so I can switch over to show you Rosebud. So here we are at Rosebud, and I can see, oh, in the middle there's our MDRS chat, and we can click play and it will load up for us. So this one is still a demo at the moment. I'm still working on this one and making it better, but I have a little character here and he will try and talk to you as after you've loaded, but I have to warn you, he's a little bit grumpy. So we deliberately made this mission specialist, which is kind of Mr. Nalder. It's kind of me, Jonathan, but he's a bit grumpy. He's very busy. And so when you have a chat, you're going to have to work really hard to try and get some good information out of him. So we might want to try and find out, how is the base going? We can just type in a question and then see, what is mission specialist Jay? What's he going to think about? He's telling us it's fine, just the usual routine. All right, so he's not being very friendly. He's not being very chatty. So when you use this, you actually have to be pretty persevering, and you have to keep trying and ask different questions. If you promise to make him some coffee, then you'll probably get better answers out of it. Just saying. And then eventually you'll be able to get it talking, and it will start giving you information and answers. So somebody, we had a question about what do we need to do to reduce stress? Well, I could ask it in here as well. What do we need to do to reduce stress on the base? I could actually ask and see what this character says. Oh, he says we could use some more greenery and better food options. Okay, so that's the start of a conversation you could have and say, what do you mean by greenery, or what do you mean by better food? And then eventually, if you want to do a project about Mars, you could use the ideas, put them into your design. So if he's saying, yep, by when better food, he actually means coffee. So you might want to build a way of growing coffee or having coffee on Mars, and that might keep all the adults a lot happier. And then it would be a great Mars base. So you could, chat to this chatbot. Now we've based it around information about the Mars Desert Research Station. It's accessing information about Mars specifically and those topics. So it'll stick to those, and then you can see what you find out. But as I said, if you're 13 or older, that would be great for you to test that one out as well. It's only just still a bit of a demo. We want to make sure that it's giving you all the information and those kind of things that you would want. Very good. Now, I'll give you a few minutes. There might be some people who are testing that out. While you're doing that, I'm just going to go back to my main screen, and then you might actually have some other questions that you would like to type in as well. We've had some fantastic questions so far about the microscopic life and how long does it take to travel? That's right. Has anybody worked out how long it takes to travel to Mars yet? I might talk about it in a minute, but if you do have something, you might want to type in what you were thinking about how long it takes to get there. I know if I wanted to travel from Brisbane here in Queensland to Sri Lanka, that would probably take me about maybe half a day, I guess. I'd have to fly to one city. That would take a few hours, and then fly probably from there to Sri Lanka. That would take another few hours. Not too bad, really, thanks to having planes. But before we had planes, it might take me a long time on a ship. It might take me a couple of weeks on a ship if I had to get there that way. I can't really drive there because of the ocean, so I'd have to go on a ship. But Mars obviously is a lot further away. Now the moon, you can get to the moon in about 2.5 or 3 days with our current rockets. But it'd be interesting to see if you've got an answer about getting to Mars, what you guys think, how long it would take. Now is probably your last chance to pop that in the Q&A. Anyone got something? You might still be testing out the chatbot, and that's okay. So yeah, now is probably your last chance if you want to put in what you're thinking about how long it takes to get to Mars, or maybe you have one other last question as well that you might want to pop in there. And then I'll tell you what I've learned about traveling to Mars, how long it takes in a minute, but I just want to give you a little bit longer. All right, it's just about your last chance, everyone, to either type in new question or tell us what you're thinking, how long it might take to get to Mars. I'm wondering maybe some people are looking up this information at home, which is fine. Okay, so let's talk about traveling to Mars then. As we explained earlier, because both Mars and Earth, they're both moving around the sun. So sometimes they're on the opposite sides of the sun, and then if you try to get to Mars, then you've got to go and then go all the way around the sun to get there. So it would take you at least a couple of years in a rocket ship if you went then. Nobody ever does that because it's just too hard. So instead, we wait till we're both over the same side of the sun, and if you do that, you can get to Mars in about 8 months. 8 months is still a pretty long time. You have to blast off from Earth. Then you probably have to wait a little bit while your rocket gets some more fuel put in it. And then you can set off to Mars. Yeah, and about 7 or 8 months later, you would arrive and actually be able to land there. You might spend, even if you wanted to just spend a couple of weeks on Mars, that would still be amazing for the first humans. But then you'd still have to get back in your rocket, and then it's still going to be another, maybe by then it might be 12 months by the time that you actually do the flight back to Earth. So generally, will probably those first humans, if they go there, land, and then come almost straight back, yeah, it's going to be nearly a couple of years. So you're going to have to be very motivated and dedicated. But as I said, maybe that will be some of you guys as being the Mars generation. Okay, so thank you, everyone. That's all of the information and the things that I wanted to share with you today. I want to say thank you for your great questions and putting your ideas in and helping me out to test those things as well. It's been great. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us such a beautiful lecture and the information. Always you amaze us with your quality lecture, actually. Thank you very much, Mr. Nalder.
My pleasure. I had a lot of fun as well meeting all of you guys.
Thank you so much. Actually, I have some... You saying?
I was just saying we had somebody waving. They put their hand up as a wave.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was like, gonna invite all the students, if they have more questions, to raise the hands up in Teams, so then we can call your name and you can ask your questions directly. Let me see. Who have raised his or her hand? Nobody? I saw someone. Right? Well, actually, I have a question.
Very good.
Waiting for our dear students to prepare their questions also. When you have mentioned the drama game that you are using to teach students some very interesting facts about Mars, I was like wondering how you did got that idea to use drama and to make it educational. Can you give us more feedback?
Sure. So because I was a drama teacher, and when we want to learn about something new, there's a few ways you can learn about something new. You can read a book. So if your teacher comes to class and says, today you're going to start learning about Mars, well, they might give you a book. Okay, that's okay. Or they might show you a video. You might watch a little bit of a video. That's one way of learning. But another way is to learn those things, but then actually show everyone else in the class. Just act out a little drama. And if you start with just a freeze frame, that's just the start of it. That's what we did. But once everyone's got that done, then you can unfreeze and you can actually show them what you've learned. So if you've learned about the rovers on Mars and how they work, you could act that out rather than just telling people, or rather than just writing an assignment to say what you've learned. If you act it out, you actually learn it a lot better because you're moving your body. So humans, we learn really well if we're moving our body at the same time as our brains. Yeah, so that's where I learned, yeah, doing that sort of thing from. Yeah.
So is it like experience, you allow your students to experience the process of the topic that you want them to understand? Is it so?
Yeah, yeah. So we do some of that research, and we do some reading and some videos, but then we put on the spacesuit or the jacket, and then start acting it out and showing what we've learned that way, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, thank you for your explanation. And also, I would like to know more about the concept of Edunaut. What is it about and what make it special?
Edunaut. Well, everybody knows what an astronaut is, obviously, or maybe you do, maybe you don't. So astro means the stars, and naut actually means a sailor. So back in the old days when everyone traveled by ship, you would have the sailors, but also they used that naut, N-A-U-T, naut, in the English language was a way of saying, yep, like a sailor as well. So astronaut is a sailor of the stars, I guess. And for me, as I said, I'm a teacher. I love the idea of education and learning. So rather than being an astronaut, if you want to explore learning, then you could be an edunaut, an edu-naut. Yeah, education naut, edunaut. So yeah.
Can
That's a
we
good way to put those.
introduce Edunaut in our like schools in the future?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I would like to, what I really want to do is get a whole lot of other teachers who can be edunauts, and give them some badges, and we can meet together and talk about these kinds of things. So I should probably talk to you and Dr. Aravinda about that sometime.
Absolutely. Why I have mentioned these? Because if you see right now, few schools have this concept of teaching space science to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in an amazing era that I believe we are very open right now to space science. And we
Mm-hmm.
believe with Dr. Arvinda that now is the time to introduce space science to our schools. And your
Definitely.
concept of e-donut, it makes complete sense and it's fancy.
Yeah, we can definitely have some student edunauts as well.
Absolutely. I think so. I think it's gonna be a good experience worldwide, starting from Australia, starting
Yes.
from you, as you are the founder.
Yes, and we can definitely talk about so as I said, the company that I work with is at STEM Punks.
Yeah,
They would probably be interested in chatting with you guys about ideas as well. Yeah.
absolutely. I have another thing to highlight, Mr. Nalder. We know that you are like you have a great experience in education, and we was thinking with Dr. Arvinda to soon create a seminar. And in this seminar, we are going to include also our talented student kids. To be clear, so we would like your feedback on this idea because when we talk about seminars, we talk about adults, scientists, researchers, those who have 10 years, 5 years of expertise at least. So with Dr. Arvinda, we was like we must include our kids, our childrens on this process of learning and showcasing their projects.
Mm.
So what do you think about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I think that's great, and mainly because when you're an adult, you forget a lot of things, and you get a bit boring. And when you're still a student, you have so many more different ideas that adults would never think of. So I think it's actually really important to get students to share those ideas, because they have such different. They might be a bit wild and crazy, but we need as many ideas as we can get, rather than just the adult ideas. Yeah, so I think that's good. Should definitely do that.
I believe this is why we are going to have some adult teachers to organize those kids who gonna attend in these seminars to like guide them through this process, to don't make them go like craziest in their creativity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We still need to have some kind of limits, but yeah, for sure. No, it sounds like a great idea.
We have already some good projects that have been created from our talented students, like Anushka's one, Tenuga's, and we have other students that they have created some good products that we are going to share during our upcoming seminar. I hope you're gonna join us either online or in person.
Yeah. Wow, that'd be amazing for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, keep telling me about it and how it goes. I'd love to hear some of those ideas.
Absolutely.
I think
We
I
are
saw
gonna keep you
is there a
updated.
couple of hands up?
Really?
There?
I don't. Yeah, one. Yuvin. Yuvin, go ahead, dear. You can open your microphone and ask your question. Yuvin have disappeared. What happened? Okay, network maybe, but Winnie will have the refresh your app, Yuvin,
There
and
is.
ask your question, if possible.
No, he doesn't want to.
No. All right. So maybe some network issue, no problem. Well, it was an amazing day, an amazing lecture, as always. You always amaze us, Mr.
Thanks,
Nalder.
guys.
Thank you so much for your time, for your devotion. And we have Hasmita that want to ask a question. Go ahead, dear.
Sir, when we are on the Mars complex, that uh, MRDS, I think, how do we get oxygen? Is it through the greenhouse structure?
Yeah, very good question. When you first set up a base, you would probably bring oxygen tanks with you, but after a while, you need to, you use up that oxygen. And one place would be growing the plants. The plants will eat up the carbon dioxide that the humans breathe out, and then they'll turn that back into oxygen. But if you don't have enough plants to turn the carbon dioxide we breathe out into new oxygen, then you need to have special filters that would do that for you. So you would have machines that can also take that and turn it back into the oxygen. Pretty important.
Yes. The other question is that how much plants do we need for to get a sufficient amount of oxygen?
Yeah, it's actually quite a lot. You need, if we're thinking about a plant that's about this size, something that you could probably grow, you probably need about 20 or 30 of those for every person. So you're probably going to need the machines to help you as well as the plants. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, Asmita. And right now I'm going to invite Tinuga to ask his questions. Go ahead, dear.
Sir, how would Mars' low gravity affect on plant growth?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So Mars does have lower gravity. Here on Earth, I mean, when you drop something, we know how fast things fall. On Mars, they drop only 1/3. So the gravity is only 1/3. And that means that if you weigh 30 kilograms on Earth, on Mars, you would only weigh 10 kilograms. Now, that probably is going to affect the plants. They don't, just like us humans, we won't have that force pulling us down. So that might mean the plants grow higher, they grow taller. And if there's ever any babies on Mars and people grow up on Mars, they'll probably be taller as well because they don't have as much gravity pulling them down. So yeah, one impact on plants would be they probably grow taller. Apart from that, we don't really know yet. Good question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
Good
You're very
question.
welcome, Tinoga. Now I'm going to ask Anushka to ask his question.
Very good.
Go ahead, dear.
Sir, can't you use alga for oxygen? I think it's quite easy.
Oh, I might just get you to say that one more time for me, Anushka.
Can't you use alga, sir, for oxygen?
So you're thinking about a different idea for getting the oxygen. Yeah, and I think, yes, you're right. You can do that. And you probably need maybe 1, 2, or 3, or 4 different ways of getting that oxygen. Because oxygen is will be so important. Maybe you can get some ice. There is a lot of ice buried underground on Mars. So you might want to get some of that and use the H2O, so the water, as you said, to get the O oxygen atoms out of there. So yeah, that would be definitely another good way. Very good.
I see you, Vin. Go ahead, dear. You can ask your question.
Sir, what would happen if because of something, because of something destructive, let's say an asteroid crashed into the Mars base? So, when some people are in Mars, so how could they live? In other places, if it happens in Earth, there are enough people to rebuild it. But there are not enough resources or anything, not enough people to rebuild it in time.
Yes. Yeah, another really good question is on Earth. Earth gets hit by asteroids all the time. We already talked about that, but our thick atmosphere protects us for most of the time. On Mars, the atmosphere is only 3% of what it is on Earth. It's very, very tiny. So that's a really good question because yes, on Mars, the asteroids there's nothing really stopping them. And if one of them comes down and hits your base, that could be a big problem. But I might just put that back to you. Like, how would you protect your base? Do you need to build it underground? Do you need to build it inside a cave somewhere? Do you need to build it extra strong? That's a problem that everyone will need to work on because you don't have that atmosphere to protect it. You have to think of some other ways instead. Yeah, I like your thinking.
Sir, what about sir? So because without the moon, could we because without a moon in Mars, would asteroid be an even bigger impact on it, and also other stuff would happen?
There are a lot more asteroids that hit Mars because Mars does have 2 moons. Now there are 2 little moons. They're quite tiny, but there are 2 moons that are in orbit around Mars. But because they're small, they don't really offer any protection. So yeah, you're right. Mars does get a lot more asteroids, and we would just have to figure out how to protect our bases. Good.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, guys. Keep up all that great thinking.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask Hasmita to open the microphone and ask the question. Go ahead, dear.
Sir, regarding that UV's question, can't we use autonomous bots for reconditioning and servicing the problems inside the MDRS?
Yeah, so not so much the MDRS, but if we're talking about on Mars for real,
we'll
definitely need robots who can help out the humans. The first base on Mars might only have 4 or 6 humans there, so I think they would definitely want to have some robots. The problem with robots so far is they're not as good as humans. You probably need 5 robots to do the same thing that 1 human can do. But yeah, I think a mixture of having the humans and the robots. There are going to be some dangerous areas. Mars does have more radiation from the sun. So maybe you want to send robots outside more often and keep the humans more protected inside and only send the humans out when you have to. So that's why if you have a combination of the two, I think that would be a really good way of doing it.
Sir, is the robot's dexterity a problem when trying to do services in Mars?
Yeah, so here on Earth, we're only just starting to have robots that can actually, they kind of have hands that are close to what human hands have. They can, stand up and move around close to what humans can. But even those ones, even the ones that are getting good, their battery runs out after an hour. Or maybe they have to have a power cord plugged in, so they can only go so far. So there's still limitations. Now, maybe in 20 or 30 years, when humans, might be living on Mars, we'll probably have better robots by then. So it might be a totally different conversation then. But for now, yeah, they've got some things they can do better than humans, but other things that they can't. So I like the idea of being a team, have a team between the robots and the humans. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Good on you for thinking about those kinds of things. That's good.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir.
much, dear students. Thank you. It was a
Thank
great
you, ma'am.
discussion session. You're very welcome, dear. Actually, right now, Mr. Nalder, I'm going to invite Dr. Arvinda to give us his comments for
Very good.
today's amazing, outstanding session. Dr. Arvinda, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joda. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, well, first, Jonathan, it's a very interesting discussion, and thank you very much for being here again. And I believe our students also really enjoy, and they have been just truly interacting with the US session, and that's the most important thing. The way of you teaching them the STEM. I believe you really know how to using the that STEM part with the young generation, even whatever you old. So age is just something like number that you are truly represented it. I believe in the near future, I can share some of our Mars Regolith to you, sharing in the
Yeah,
US
yes,
student.
yes, please. Yeah, I want to try some of that out as well now. Yeah,
Definitely,
that'd be good.
we'll try. Yeah, we are also available with the 3 different type of samples. And again, thank you very much. And I wishing you very all the best for your future activities. And as soon as possible, again, we hope you will join it as another session. Thank you very much again. Yeah,
Thanks, everyone. We'll have to talk again soon. Yeah, take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for today's session and for your time. Wishing you an excellent day. Stay safe and stay happy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ad Martis, everyone. Bye-bye.